Good evening. I'm Julie Luck along with Chad Silber here, and we are following another night of protests and demonstrations and rallies in many parts of the Piedmont Triad, in Burlington, in High Point, and Greensboro. I just want to bring this information just in from the city of Grand. They have issued a curfew starting at 9 o'clock tonight.
And all day we have seen the crowds of people in each of these cities slowly growing. We've had our reporters in Greensboro and in High Point for much of the day, and we've seen protests, we've seen silent protests, we've seen gatherings outside police departments, really just kind of spreading across the area.
Overall, a day of peaceful protest. This is what we like to see. Chief Brian James with the Greensboro Police Department said earlier today it's really kind of unclear of what will be happening tonight. But in the meantime, there are several demonstrations happening in downtown Greensboro, just like what happened yesterday. We have crews all over the Piedmont Triad. We have Alma McCarty, who's live in High Point. We have Kevin Kennedy, who is heading to downtown Greensboro. Adoria Chumba, as well as Jess Winters, they will be joining us from downtown Greensboro momentarily.
And like Julie said, we have seen everything be very peaceful up until this point, but you have to remember it was about 10:30 last night when things kind of took a turn for the worst, at least in downtown Greensboro. So we do expect to continue to keep following this as this day progresses.
So let's check on the situation in downtown Greensboro right now. WFMY News 2's Jess Winters joins us live now with the very latest. Hi, Jess.
Hey Julie, round two of protests in downtown Greensboro. We are on South Elm Street. This was the focal point of the protest last night. There were heavy applause and cheers behind me. They have been marching and protesting for about 3.5 hours today, maybe even a little bit longer. If I had to guess, and I have conferred with my colleagues as well, there are probably 500 to 700 people here tonight. People keep coming. The group keeps getting larger and larger throughout the night. Now, yesterday, if I can compare to yesterday, we had groups of about 100 and 200, and same thing, more and more people just trickled in as the night progressed, and it is still early compared to how long the protest lasted last night into the overnight hours until 3 a.m., 3:30 a.m. This group behind me has remained peaceful throughout the day, but I do want to remind you this was the point where violence did ensue. Yesterday, some vandalism. You can see businesses around me boarded up. The mayor today, Mayor Nancy Vaughn, she pointed to this violence, saying that these were outsiders. These weren't Greensboro residents that brought this violence here. These were outsiders. Chief James said the same thing. Sheriff Danny Rogers said the same thing. But some of these businesses are boarded up because their glasses were shattered last night, because rocks were thrown through the window and other things like stools were thrown through the windows. But some people put these boards up as preventative measures because they don't know what will happen tonight as the night progresses. Again, this has been very peaceful. We're hearing the same chants we did last night. Don't shoot, don't shoot. Black lives matter. Black lives still matter. I can't breathe. And those signs that you see behind me and what they're saying, what they're chanting, what they're screaming with their impassioned voices behind me is also what you'll see on these boards. The boards of these businesses have been spray painted with hearts. They've been spray painted with BLM, which is Black Lives Matter, and then some. And 85% of the businesses beyond McGee, so McGee all down South Elm, they've all been boarded up, but businesses on the other side of South Elm, heading toward North Elm, have not been boarded up. But now we're on South Elm. Earlier we were in front of the International Civil Rights Center and Museum, and they were standing in solidarity, arms raised to the sky, and everything has been peaceful thus far today, and they want to maintain that peace. They gave an impassioned speech when we were closer to the Civil Rights Center and Museum, and I do want to mention one of the organizers because it was so powerful what she said, and she had tears in her eyes when she said it. She said, "I promised my mother when I woke up this morning that she wouldn't have to bury her child tonight." And that gained a round of applause and a round of cheers, and that really started the movement and started the march up to the point where we are right now on South Elm. We're close to the train tracks, a little bit beyond the train tracks, and again, that's where you saw the scene last night on those train tracks where you had a ton of police presence. You had police with riot gear on, you had deputies from the Guilford County Sheriff's Office with riot gear on, and that was yesterday. This is today. We have not seen that. There is a police presence here. There are GPD cops, they're on their bikes. There have been no verbal interactions thus far. There have been no police lines. Again, tactical gear has not been brought out. That has not happened. So we're still early into the day, and again, this group is behind us. They're making impassioned speeches, they're holding up their signs, and we're going to continue to keep an eye on this.
Jess, thank you. So glad to see hundreds of people out there. They're demonstrating peacefully, and we do want to reiterate that yesterday, the majority of the protests were peaceful. It wasn't until later into the night that they did turn violent. There was one arrest made yesterday. It was a counter-protester who tried to disrupt a peaceful protest. Earlier today, Sheriff Danny Rogers, Greensboro Police Chief Brian James, as well as Mayor Nancy Vaughn, as well as some other city council members, they held a news conference and talked about what happened last night. And Chief James, it's what Jess said. He was saying that the people who caused destruction overnight, they were not from the city. And people are asking us on Facebook, well, how do you know that? And Chief James went on to explain that the city was in contact with organizations that do organize some of the protests, and they said, you know what, it was not us. So we are trying to clarify the questions that you have to us, and we ask you to continue to have this dialogue with us. I know you have a lot of questions. We hope to bring you those answers.
And another city where we have seen a large gathering of people throughout the day today is High Point, and WFMY News 2's Alma McCarty is live there now. Alma, what's the latest?
Hey Chad, hey Julie, I have been out here since this afternoon, and I do want to emphasize that the protests that we saw earlier today were not violent at all. The protesters and the police officers really were engaging in a dialogue. Chief Schultz actually got around and spoke with some of the demonstrators from the other side of the barricades. But where we are right now is in front of the Walmart on South Main Street. This is a spot that appears to have some serious damage to the doors. You can see that the glass has been broken out of many of the doors under this home and pharmacy section. Again, this Walmart actually closed earlier in the day, and you can see actually the water bottles and whatnot set up almost as a barricade in front of those doors. But there were folks that got in. I've been told by High Point police officers that they believe about 30 people were inside of the building at some point once they broke in. However, when officers did get to the scene, only one person, a sole person, was inside of the store. So at this point, there is actually nobody inside of this Walmart. What we are led to believe is that it could have been some of the protesters from earlier today. We do not have that yet confirmed. I've got calls out to High Point police. But again, this appears to be some sort of a looting type situation. There's actually a television right outside of the door right there. But from what we saw, again, this is what we've just observed, is that the person who maybe was let out of the store, the last person inside of the store, he went and joined a group of folks who were gathered within their cars in a lower parking lot here, and from there they moved on. What we are hearing is that there is some kind of a protest demonstration happening further along South Main Street. So we're going to check that out in a little bit here. But we did want to let you know why there were so many police cars outside of the Walmart. Again, this is on South Main Street in High Point. But it appears that this particular situation very much under control. And just to wrap up the day for High Point in general, it was very peaceful. There was, important and very, just the dialogue. It was good. There were people who were impassioned. There were people who were shouting. There was chanting and whatnot, but it did not seem as though it was going to take a turn. There were a lot of community members, including High Point City Council members. Even Commissioner Carlvina Foster was out here today saying that if they didn't have any kind of a protest, a peaceful protest in High Point, that would have sent a different message. So for now, I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio, but did want to get you updated on what we know about this situation. As soon as we get more details, of course, we will be bringing those to you. So for now, live in High Point, Alma McCarty, WFMY News 2.
Alma, thank you. You're seeing that situation, the closed Walmart on South Main Street in High Point. This has actually been a bit of a theme at some Walmarts across the Piedmont Triad. Earlier today, there was another Walmart that closed in High Point because of a precautionary measure. And also earlier today, too, the Walmart over in Lexington was closed because there was a threat there. Lexington police say a person who made that threat is in custody. So it has been a fluid situation throughout the day. But Alma was mentioning in High Point about the demonstrators there. This has been going on for several hours. There are a lot of police. The demonstrators have been in their cars. They have been on foot. They were on the way to the High Point Walmart. They're also headed along Main Street. They also ended up in front of the police department where there was a discussion with Chief Kenneth Schultz, and we understand that he actually came outside, and we're told that there was a very impassioned dialogue there where it started with shouts, but then as the dialogue continued, it turned into whispers because there was an exchange, there was an understanding, there was a discussion there, and this is what we want to see. This is what this is about, to get a message out there, to convey it, but also to do it peacefully and to also to be heard.
Right, and be constructive about it, right? And you know, one thing that Kevin Kennedy had been telling us, because he was there the moment that the chief came outside and came to talk to some of the people who were outside in front of what they've set up, kind of like a barricade in front of the police station over there. And the chief actually crossed the barricade and went to talk to some of the people who were there, including a pastor who was telling us the conversation that they had, which I think is very symbolic.
Very much so.
Showing that, you know, we are on your side with this.
And not only that, it's we are accessible. We hear you. We want to have discussions with you. How can we find some common ground? What can be done here? And I also, speaking about a dialogue, I do want to mention that the North Carolina NAACP, they're calling for a statewide call for prayer tomorrow at 6 o'clock. So put that on your calendar. That is tomorrow at 6 o'clock. We're continuing our coverage. You heard from Jess Winter. She was in downtown Greensboro yesterday. She saw the tensions escalate there. Our Adore Chumba was also live there throughout the night. She is joining us live again from downtown Greensboro with the very latest from downtown. Adore.
All right, so we are right here on South Elm at Lewis, and you can see behind me the protesters have stopped over there behind me. They are having a conversation, reassessing as they continue their march. They have been marching for nearly 4 hours today, all of it peacefully. They've been chanting, "I can't breathe," "No justice, no peace," and just all the different chants that express the reason that they're out here today. Right now they have stopped here, and this is the intersection where we spent a lot of our time here yesterday evening when we saw that line of police officers approaching and pushing up against the protesters. So far, we haven't seen any face-to-face confrontation as we did see last night. And just to emphasize on how peacefully this has been throughout today. By this time last night, yes, that's when we started seeing some of that chaos and that chaotic scenario and the vandalism that happened on this side of Elm Street. As Jess pointed out, this area is where the businesses were affected yesterday, and they've been boarded up, some of them as a protective measures, those ones that weren't hit. But at least we know about at least 20 businesses were targeted yesterday. Again, today, none of such has happened. The marchers have been here peacefully all day, making their rounds around the downtown area in Greensboro, making significant and symbolic stops. At one point, we saw them kneeling for several minutes as they knelt in front of, by the side of the Guilford County Courthouse, where they knelt for several minutes with their fists up. And then we also had them stop at the ICRC, again, another significant and symbolic stop in the city of Greensboro. Right now, here they are stopped here at the corner, at the intersection of South Elm and East Lewis Street here. Again, the leaders of this group have been speaking passionately to the marchers. having conversations and speeches and really expressing themselves about why they are making this march around the city of Greensboro today, again, to signify their dissatisfaction with police brutality and injustice. Again, all of this spurred by what happened to George Floyd in Minneapolis. Again, they've been doing this almost 4 hours today peacefully. There hasn't been any incident. Police have been watching, even leading the marchers, some of the police officers ahead and some flanking them on the different side streets, and also a number of them behind. We've also seen police officers on bicycle riding on the side and maybe getting ahead to stop traffic ahead of the protesters as they're marching down the street. Again, like I said, we have to emphasize, so far for now, it has been peaceful, and I'm going to just show you again what the protesters are doing here. Again, they have stopped right here at the intersection of South Elm Street and East Lewis. This was where there was the some of that confrontation with police officers last night. We haven't seen any of such all day today. The police pretty much working with the organizers, as far as I am told, communicating as they're making their route through the city here, and just kind of keeping a respectful distance from them, but keeping a watchful eye on them as well. And again, so far, no altercations, no incidents, no confrontations. The leaders here have also been calming fears, and one of the leaders asked some of the people, because we've seen different people here, a very diverse group of people here, seniors and families, as well as people with children. The leader of the group did tell them that now is the time for them to go home, because it was getting late, and they weren't sure who would come around and try to stir up trouble or foment any kind of trouble. So she did advise that they needed to go home so that the young ones would not be injured if anything happened. But so far, so good. This has been a very peaceful protest throughout the day, and we're still staying with them, and we'll continue to be with them, and we'll keep you folks updated on anything that happens.
Adore, thank you. And if you've been watching our coverage throughout the day today, you have seen that Adore has been following this group, or at least some of the groups, around downtown Greensboro, and they have been very peaceful, and they've been having some great dialogue. I mean, imagine 100 people coming together in a circle and allowing one person to speak. That they would just let that one person speak, and then they would take turns. And it was just such a night and day difference from last night.
Right. Last night, definitely an eyesore. Watching last night, transpiring around 10:30 last night. Difficult to see. You live downtown. I used to live downtown. This is a place that we love their restaurants. We love their businesses. And this is a time that we should all be coming together. The destruction was it was senseless. And I'm sorry.
Right. No, that's okay. It's completely understandable. And you got to feel for the business owners too, because a lot of them had their windows broken and had things stolen, and they have boarded up their windows. But I'm sure they're not going to sleep a lot tonight.
Well, it's not only that. In addition to that, we have been dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. These small business owners have been struggling to survive during these last 2-3 months. Some restaurants surviving just on takeout, not been able to open their dining rooms until somewhat recently.
Right.
These small businesses taking their businesses, really trying to go on Instagram and sell their wares when this is not really something they normally do. So you want to support the small business, but then you have some of these outliers, some of these interlopers, as Mayor Vaughn called them, and just adding insult to injury. This is really not the time to be doing things like this. Again, we're talking about what happened late last night and overnight. The protest yesterday, overall, throughout the day, very meaningful. They were peaceful. I want to quote Guilford County Sheriff Danny Rogers. He called it. He said that, they were meaningful and they were peaceful, calling the majority of them. But he also said the people who came in and brought destruction will not be tolerated. So that's really the general consensus here. The peaceful protest, this is something that is encouraging. It's good to have these conversations, but there's no reason that it should get to the point where people are busting out windows and damaging property. A good 20 businesses downtown now having to now deal with their insurance companies when they're already trying to just stay afloat.
Right, and we saw a couple hours before, I mean, it really got bad last night. We have some video of it too. We were looking at people on the interstate really just shut down traffic. A lot of people, you can see, most people are on the bridge above, but there were just crowds of people they were just kind of moving from one section of the city to the other. And I think just, trying to get their voices heard to every corner of our city. And
I want to point out the video that you're looking at right now, this is one of the peaceful protests. So this is just one illustration of what happened yesterday. You don't see anyone breaking anything. You don't see any of that. It was after, because the city of Greensboro, the police department, really tried to move people to downtown to try to contain some of the people who are getting out of hand. Unfortunately, some of these outsiders, as the city is calling them, just caused damage to these poor businesses.
And it muddies the message. You've got a handful of people who are doing bad things, and all the other hundreds and thousands of people. I mean, it's bigger than Greensboro. I mean, obviously, this is happening in cities all across the country. That is what everybody is talking about. It's not about the message. It's about all the damage that's been done.
And I want to read you a quote from Mayor Nancy Vaughn. She had some empowering words today. She said, "We are Greensboro strong. We had a few difficult hours, but we are not going to be defined by those hours." And I think that is really what Greensboro is about. When we're talking about that symbolic stop outside the International Civil Rights Center Museum, this is where the Greensboro Four sat down peacefully to protest back in 1960. And they sat down at the all-whites lunch counter and they said, "I want to be served." And history was made. And here they were today, having that peaceful dialogue outside such a symbolic center. I mean, it's truly, it's very poignant. But also, I have to point out that the Civil Rights Center Museum was damaged last night.
Right.
So was the courthouse downtown. There are a good 20 businesses that were damaged. The city of Greensboro has not yet, is still tabulating how much damage that costs, but regardless, a lot of businesses still having to do even more because of just a few people causing trouble.
Yeah, and we imagine that more people will continue to show up in downtown Greensboro for this protest happening right now. WFMY News 2's Jess Winters is downtown and kind of getting a lay of the land down there. How is it, Jess?
Chad, Julie, just to give an offshoot of what you were talking about muddying the message, when I was here last night for the protests around midnight, two individuals started jumping on a sedan on one of the protesters' cars, and a bunch of protesters who were remaining peaceful were so upset, saying, "Get off. This is not our message. Get off that car right now. What are you doing? What are you doing right now?" So a lot of people, even last night, I know you've seen the videos circulating on WFMY, you've seen them all over social media from your friends, from your family, but the majority of yesterday remained peaceful. I was marching with people for 8+ hours. We went all down Westgate City Boulevard. We walked about 2 miles, and then they went further onto I-40. I branched off, and then I went back downtown where there were 2 separate groups. One was on Davie Street in Friendly, and the other one was by the Guilford County Courthouse, and we were just doing loops around downtown, walking, marching in solidarity, holding up their signs, chanting. And like I said earlier, the mayor pointed to that, and so did Chief James with GPD, saying that the majority of it was peaceful. And the group here is about 500 to 600 to 700 people, and they're starting to walk toward us, and they're starting to walk down the street. They were for about 15 minutes. Yeah, for about 15 minutes, they were huddled in a group. And all right, we're gonna, if we could just send it back to the studio, because you're gonna be hearing some explicit language.
Jess, thank you. We do apologize for that. This is live television, and unfortunately, we can't control all of the people and all of the sounds that you hear coming through your television or through your smartphone or your device. So we do apologize, and we're doing our best to stay away enough that, you know, if there is some foul language, you can't hear it. But again, we can't control all of the surroundings. So.
But you're also talking about, you know, the responsibility. I want to illustrate and explain to you our crews. Our crews are working in pairs. We are making sure that they are keeping a safe distance. They have been given their directions. If they feel unsafe or if they're in a situation where there is some bad language, it's okay that you can just toss it back to the studio, because you know what? Let's avoid that bad language, shall we?
Right, absolutely.
Okay, so we can talk, and then, you know, Jess can get away from some of that, or we can see, and we can just kind of monitor the situation from back here, and we can bring you back live when things are not so loud. How's
right,
that?
yeah, that's good, yeah.
All right, so we're now going to bring you a picture of Graham. We understand that a lot of police cruisers have been parked outside the county courthouse down there, and you're looking at that picture right now, and you can see, yeah, a lot of police cruisers lined up.
Yeah, they've surrounded the building, actually. I don't know the reason for it, if it's a, you know, a message of solidarity, if it's, you know, to protect the courthouse, but it is quite the scene. You know, police in Greensboro, as well as I imagine Graham and other cities, say that they are prepared to handle any type of situation that might come up. Something else that was interesting that people have asked on social media, when, you know, Julie had already mentioned it, but one person was arrested yesterday, and some people have asked why. Why was there just one person arrested when all of this crime occurred with the looting and the vandalizing? And so when a reporter asked that to Police Chief Brian James, Greensboro Police Department, there were a couple reasons. He said, you know, lives are more important than I guess property at the time, and because it was a volatile situation, and they also wanted to make sure that all of the police officers were in a formation to protect the safety of the people who were out there. So he said, you know, imagine losing a part of a chain link fence, right? Like if you lose one part, the whole thing could collapse. And so they wanted to make sure that they had all the people in their right spots and to be able to protect the people who were there.
It is a question that we are getting a lot of. So, you know, Chad's just trying to explain. This is from the police chief explaining what happened last night. If you were watching live here, watching the live feed, I mean, it was loud, it was chaotic, it was extremely busy. And so you have to understand, like, I shouldn't say you have to understand, but police, they have their tactics, they have their own strategies, and we are conveying the message to you that Chief James did address the question of why were there not more arrests. He also, I want to say, just kind of an offshoot, Governor Roy Cooper was able to speak earlier today as well, and he said that 450 National Guard members are available to cities if needed, but members of those cities will need to be requesting them from the city and the county leader. So just want to let you know that 450 National Guard members will be available as per the governor, but we have not heard about anything from the city of Greensboro requesting their presence here.
Right, and Greensboro police have a long laundry list of video that they say that they're going to be watching because they do want to bring justice to the people who committed the crimes last night. So we will, sorry, getting producer in my ear telling me something. One more time. Okay, we're going to go live to Alma McCarty, who is in High Point. She has been following a group of protesters, I believe, on Main Street, Alma.
Yes, we kind of relocated from the Walmart once we had heard that there was a scene in the downtown of High Point. What you can see now behind me and even walking alongside are some officers who are now wearing riot gear. So there are protesters on the other side. We weren't really able to get through to them, but you see quite a few High Point police officers now ready to go. Just kind of observing the scene for a second here. We weren't sure how many people are on the other side. I would, if I had to estimate from what I can see, I probably would say about 30 or so people are gathered. We have seen people riding in the backs of cars, heading towards this way. Again, we're in downtown High Point. Nothing at this point has happened, but you can see a lot of officers who are ready to engage, if that's the right term, if necessary. They are putting on, this gentleman right here seems to be putting on a gas mask. And we're seeing a lot of officers gearing up like this. Again, this is downtown High Point. At this point, we're still trying to figure out exactly what is going on, because there were some officers at this point too who seem to be repositioning and heading to a different part of town. So this is a very fluid situation. We are not entirely sure what is going on at this moment. I'm going to try to get a little bit closer, a safe distance away, however. So right here? Right here. Okay, this officer is telling me to stay right here, so that's what I'm going to do. There are protesters, I believe, on the opposite side of this group of High Point police officers in their tactical gear. We are hearing some sirens at this point, people turning, yep. It appears as though there might be a situation happening in another part of the downtown. We are not sure. Our car is back that way, so after this live hit, we may head down there to see if we can figure out what is going on. But if I had to guess, this is probably like 20 or so officers dressed in tactical gear on, we are on Main Street near High Street. Main Street near High Street. There are also a lot of cars here who seem to be moving away from this location, and some police officers do seem to be following them. We are still trying to figure out the ins and the outs of the situation. You'll remember earlier today, the protest looked nothing like this. The officers might have been wearing tactical gear, but they were on the other side of a barricade for the most part, outside of the High Point Police Department, as folks came up to the barricade and had a dialogue with some of the officers there. I've mentioned it before, but I feel like it's worth mentioning again that Chief Kenneth Schultz actually got in between, went around the barricade and spoke to a number of these demonstrators one-on-one, face-to-face, hearing out their concerns. I don't know whether or not High Point expected some sort of a second protest, something that flared up a little more. At this point, we are seeing, though, the officers are starting to move, and we are hearing a lot of honking. We're just going to back up right now against the wall to let these officers pass.
Okay.
We are, again, just... Hey, where are y'all heading to?
I think we're just going to go somewhere else for a little bit.
Okay. All right, they are moving away from this location. Again, I am on Main Street in the middle of downtown High Point, around the High Street area, and there are a lot of that group of officers has since, we're gonna walk a little closer to the protesters. That's what we're gonna do. I'm curious about this group. There might be a second group that they are going to respond to. Again, this is a pretty fluid situation, but it appears as though all of these officers have stood down. I believe that is pepper spray from my experience in these types of situations. So they are ready. They are ready to, if protesters end up. Yeah, you guys have a question in the studio.
Hi, Alma. Help us set the stage here. So
Hey,
behind you have a group of protesters, but it's the officers who are walking
Yes.
the other way. Is that what I'm seeing correctly?
Yes. So what I'll tell you, Julie, is we were only able to come up to a certain point of Main Street. Over on that corner, you see that there is a group of protesters who are out there currently. We have not gone yet to them. However, yeah, setting the scene for you though, it's a fluid situation out here. We're just trying to stay in kind of the right area because we're really in the middle of these police who are, again, wearing this tactical gear. There are chants and jeers from some of the folks over in the crowd this way. I don't exactly know what they are saying. For a minute there, it looked like some of the folks were going to be kind of moving around to a different part of downtown, but now we are hearing and seeing more of some kind of situation happening up here. The officers are getting in line. We're going to keep walking this way. We're going to keep walking this way, Manning. I'm curious to hear what they're saying. Okay. And I apologize for some of our viewers. You might hear some foul language. We are in a protest scenario, and you might hear some foul language, so just know that that is a possibility while we are out here. We're going to move out of the way for a second. We are backing up, we're backing up, we're backing up.
Right here?
Right here.
You're good.
All right. Hey, Manning, can you zoom in a little closer to the protesters? Now the officers are beginning to march forward. Many of them, if not all of them, armed with pepper spray, wearing gas masks. We're seeing more officers joining in where before they had responded to another area. Let's just take a listen. You can see the officers getting out of their vehicles at this point. They are walking closer and closer to the intersection, slowly, but heading up towards where the protesters are. You see a man there with his arms up. You see a man there, and they are spraying pepper spray. They are spraying pepper spray. These people have their hands up. Pepper balls are also being deployed at this point. We're walking up a little bit closer. Just to get a better look at what's going on. Okay. What we see right now is a number of officers pointing in the direction down this street. I'm not entirely sure what this street is. I'm gonna look just to get an idea. Might pull up a map. They did deploy, if you're just tuning in now, they did deploy pepper spray of some type. And we saw at least 2 men standing there at the corner where the protesters were gathered with their hands up. All right, that would be Martin Luther King Jr. Drive up there. We're gonna walk a little bit closer. I'm gonna put my mask on just in case there's any pepper spray lingering. There are quite a few police officers out here, all standing in a line on MLK. All right, so we are at the corner. Just to give you guys an idea of where we are. We are on Main Street at Dr. MLK Drive. There's a group of High Point police officers standing across the roadway, using a vehicle to block it off. All of them, but a few, most of them are wearing gas masks. And we did see them deploy pepper spray.
Hey, Alma, I have a question for you. Were you able, I know that you were far back, but
Sure.
Were you able to see about how many protesters were there? And were you able to see whether those protesters were doing anything illegal?
Chad, to be honest with you, I'm not sure if they were doing anything illegal, so I think it would be inappropriate to speculate. That being said, that trash can over there, we did see somebody knock that over.
You will not be allowed to congregate. We will continue to disperse you. Leave this area now.
You're hearing High Point police officers telling the demonstrators to go home, to get in their cars and go home. So at that point, we are seeing the line of officers move up towards MLK. I'm going to just try to get a little bit closer for you guys. I want to see what's going on down this street. And to answer your question, Chad, I think that there were about 30 or so protesters, but it appeared as though the crowd could be growing because there were some people still arriving in the backs of vehicles, and you could tell that they might have been there at the protest earlier today. No way of knowing, but they were driving through this part of downtown with this, again, heavy police presence. If you drive through this part of High Point, this is what you are going to see. You are going to see a sea of police lights, and then you are going to see officers in tactical gear. Here we go. We have one protester here with his arms up, or his arm up. He has goggles and a mask on, probably to protect from pepper spray.
Leave the area now.
They're telling a man in front of Jimmy's Pizza House over there to leave the area. They are trying to break up what could have been a protest here, what is a protest here. They want people to go home. That has been expressed many times. I'm going to go and check out what it looks like down MLK really quick. Yeah, the line of police officers has moved up, trying to break up whatever protest there was. I can't at this point see any group of people.
Hey, Alma, I just want to reiterate the question I asked you before. The reason I was asking about whether anybody was doing anything
Sure.
illegal was I'm trying to figure out whether they used the pepper spray just to disperse the crowd, a crowd that was just legally protesting, or if there was something that they were doing to, I guess, to cause the police to disperse them in that way.
Chad, again, I don't exactly have the answer. It looked as though the pepper spray, the pepper fogger, was being used to disperse the crowd. They were gathered on this street corner right here and have since pretty much dispersed. We see another TV crew across the street. We're seeing people in their cars driving through, but not as many people gathered on the corner. We are seeing a lot of police, obviously. But I don't know. I could not tell you whether or not these folks were doing anything illegal. We were not on this side of the protest. We were back behind the police officers in their gear, of course. But they were gathered around this intersection of MLK and Main Street and have since dispersed from what I can see, gone back to their cars. We don't know if they've gone home, but it appears that a lot of people have left the area at this point. Now we're just keeping a watch on the situation. Yeah, Manning, let's give them a glimpse. Here's the officers over here. They are retreating. I can say something that we did witness out here as when we got to the scene. We did see somebody, a protester, it appeared, pulling up this trash can and throwing it. Now you have an officer who's going to pick it back up. All right, some of the officers are taking off there. It appears as though anyone who is protesting at this point is driving through, playing music, or just silent in their vehicles, sometimes with their hands outside of the window, expressing a message. Again, if you do hear profanity, we apologize for that. Alrighty, it looks like the police officers are retreating right now.
Hey, Alma, it's Julie Leck.
Back to their vehicles.
Hey, Alma, I know you've
Julie.
been, hi there, you have been monitoring the demonstrations in High Point for several hours now. Describe to the folks who are just tuning in, describe to the people where the protesters have been. They've been on foot, they've been in their cars. Where have they been throughout the last several hours?
Yes. So Julie, when we first got here to High Point, it was probably around 4 o'clock, but we knew that the protesters had already started to gather together. I don't know whether this was a Facebook group or a word of mouth. It seemed more of a word of mouth thing where people would join in their cars. It started at a few of the Walmarts, and that is why we believe that those closed down. I showed you earlier in this newscast that one of the Walmart's windows had been busted out, and police confirmed that there were people inside of that, but that was much later on. I would say from around like 4:30ish, 5 o'clock to around maybe 7:30. The protest was very, very peaceful. There were a lot of people gathered out there, really impassioned voices, you know, chanting Black Lives Matter, say his name, George Floyd, and having, again, a pretty decent, I would say, dialogue with the police officers. But that, they went from the police station, they went down to the courthouse, where one of the organizers was kind of giving a rallying speech. You know, why are you guys out here? You know, the fight isn't over after tonight, after today. We're still going to be protesting. We're going to continue that. So after they left the courthouse, they went back to the police station, where the crowd gap was even bigger than the first time that they were there. And what really happened is the protest went on. It went on peacefully. The police officers, for the most part, stayed behind a barricade that they had set up around the police station. I'm gonna keep walking this way. Anyway, but right now though, this is kind of the scene we're seeing here. So it seems as though anyone who was protesting at this point was a much smaller, more concentrated group of people. It was not the vast majority of folks that were out at the protest, the peaceful protest earlier today. What we are seeing right now, Manning, my photographer, is showing you a look of the police cars are beginning to make their way from South Main, or Main Street. Getting back in their vehicles, many of them taking off parts of their tactical gear.
So you are watching live, a live picture of downtown High Point. You are witnessing a situation that got de-escalated happening live. We saw a group of protesters on the side of the street apparently knocking over a trash can and also like a newspaper stand. And we also witnessed officers wearing their tactical gear, moving through a line down Main Street and getting that crowd to disperse.
Right, yeah, Alma, you've seen Alma before at the Walmart up the street there, and we had heard that there were some protests going down in this area near Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, and so she went down there to go check it out, and it really appears that she showed up at the exact time when that situation was, I guess, dispersed or put under control. And you know, you saw the police officers come out in their gear and their formation And the protesters, they did not like that. We heard plenty of foul language, people screaming, yelling at the police officers, wondering why they were there and why they were making that formation. So, you know, she was in the exact spot where you could see it happen. And it was quick. It didn't last long. I would say within a couple of minutes, within 5 minutes, it was over. The police officers arrived. They did what they had to do. They dispersed the crowd, and then they're gone. And now it looks as though at least parts of Main Street are reopening. And you can see in this picture right here, somebody has broken out some windows of a door at what looks to be a business there at the corner on Main Street. Don't see a sign there, but so it is possible that maybe this was the type of damage that sent the police officers in to disperse this crowd. I mean, it is just a block away from where they were, but it was very quick and it was over.
Yeah, you're watching it live. Many of you are asking us about what is happening in Greensboro right now. We have several crews in downtown Greensboro getting the lay of the land. There are between 500 to 700 protesters there, still protesting peacefully. I have to, for full transparency, our crews had to find some new positioning because they were getting some language sent their way. So we're making sure that they are in a safe place. So we are relocating them. We will bring you live reports when they are in a safer place. And
you know, if you're looking for more coverage on this, we have a ton of stuff on social media. Our reporters who are in the field, our photographers who are in the field, tweeting stuff, putting things on Facebook, really giving you a very close picture of the situation, and they have been over the past couple of days because, you know, you don't want to go out and see it yourself sometimes when it gets into a dangerous situation. So we have a lot of stuff on the WFMY News 2 Facebook page as well as on Twitter.
I do want to say that you will see pictures of damage on our Facebook page and also on our website, but you will also see stories there of hope and also of strangers and volunteers coming together to help the business owners get back on their feet and clear out the debris and clear out the damage that was caused to their businesses last night. So it really gives you a full illustration that the demonstrations, the protests, a majority were peaceful. Some last night, unfortunately, did get out of hand, and that is not called for. The destruction and the violence, that is absolutely unnecessary. But it is so uplifting to see people coming together. And I was actually following somebody on the Greensboro Takeout Facebook page. It's a website where you can talk about food and restaurants and things like that
She's
to
the
help
queen of
businesses, yes, with their takeout during all the different phases. And this person posted, what can I do to help? This is to the restaurants. And someone mentioned, you know, Mellow Mushroom was hit hard. And the person immediately says, I'm down there. And it goes to show what our community is about. It is not about violence, right? That is not who and what we are.
Right.
This is a town and an area of hospitality, about helping others. And so when you go to our website, you will see these uplifting stories too. So I just want to make sure that you understand, like, you know, the news, oh, you guys only talk about the bad stuff. There's a lot of good out there too, and we cannot forget that we need to stress that, because we, just like the coronavirus, this is something that we have to band together and we have to support each other. This is about positivity and about compassion, as opposed to just focusing on just, unfortunately, some of the bad that has happened to downtown Greensboro. We don't want any more of this violence. Let us just continue the peaceful protests. That is what these protests are nationwide. They shouldn't escalate to the point where there is damage and there's destruction. It
was definitely a bright spot this morning, logging on to Twitter and seeing the pictures of all of the volunteers who had come down to Elm Street in downtown Greensboro and just help. I mean, there were a lot of volunteers who came down there, and it was just so refreshing to see. And then you hear, you know, obviously, you know, you mentioned Mellow Mushroom had some damage done there as well. But then at the same time, Mellow Mushroom was making pizzas for the volunteers. I mean, it's so great to see. It's a shame that we have to see that, but it's great to see that the morning after, the people are out there and they're trying to help their neighbors.
We have so much video from all across the Piedmont Triad. We've been focusing on High Point and in Greensboro tonight. Now we want to bring you to Winston-Salem. So let's pull up this video. In Winston-Salem today, a couple hundred people marched through downtown, at one point laying in silence in the street. Police say the peace protest, it was peaceful. It lasted just about 3 hours. Again, this is the scene in Winston-Salem earlier today.
And we have seen, I mean, cities big and small, we have seen protests and we have seen demonstrations. And fortunately, they've stayed peaceful, right? It's unfortunate, though, that there's just a small handful of people. And, you know, they've been calling them outsiders, people who don't actually live here, who have come here purposefully to cause destruction and damage. So it's a shame. But we're going to go back to WFMY News 2's Alma McCarty. You saw her in High Point earlier. Obviously, she's still there, and she has an update for us. Hey, Alma.
Hey there, Chad. Julie, I am still in downtown High Point. A number of officers actually left this part of Main Street, but what we're seeing now, we were about to head to another location when an officer said and shined a light and said there's about 70 people heading this way. So we believe that there might still be protesters downtown. What are their intentions? We are not sure at this point. It is certainly not the crowd that we saw, or we're seeing rather, in Greensboro. But we're going to take a little walk, me and Manning, just to take a glimpse at where these folks might be going. All of the officers have pretty much left, but for a couple here and there. We have one officer here on the corner. It seems we're seeing some blue lights down that way, so we're going to go that way when we're able to cross the street. You can see there is a business across the street right there. I believe Chad had referenced that a little bit earlier, that appears to have glass broken out of the two doors. We're just waiting for the light to cross. We're heading down that way. We're seeing another officer show up. They had pretty much all dispersed, and now I believe some may be coming back. That is what we're observing here. They might be heading in the direction. This is the train depot, I believe. They are heading that way on High Avenue. All right, we're crossing the street now. We're making moves, We're gonna try to get across safely here. That is the plan. For the most part, it seems as though downtown at this moment is very, very quiet. We did see officers move in this direction, so that's where we're heading now. And we'll keep you guys posted, of course, if we end up seeing anything. Full disclosure, our shot might go down, but that is because of our battery situation here. Again, we're just walking up to see if there is some sort of situation happening in another part of the downtown area. Didn't hear anything. We did see a group of people heading in a direction this way. So we are just going to check that out. I do see a police officer heading that way. All right, we're going up through the train depot. All right, we're seeing some police lights off in the distance here, so we're going to go check out whatever that is. Again, we're not hearing the chants, the cries, the impassioned speeches and whatnot from earlier today. For those who are just joining us or getting caught up on the situation, there was a very actually long protest in High Point that started out in cars as people were driving and then converged around the police station where they protested outside of their car.
If you are just joining us, what you just saw was Alma McCarty in High Point, where things have taken a big turn after the sunset. We just saw police pepper spray trying to move that crowd out of downtown. Now, this comes after someone broke into the Walmart earlier in the day. We also have right now a crowd that is developing and growing still in downtown Greensboro. That is where Jess Winters is right now. So, like we said, technology is a big issue here right now because everyone is constantly moving. So they're trying to set up in a safe spot and make sure that works for you. As soon as that's available, we will get it to you. Let's talk about earlier today. This all started again around noon. It was largely peaceful. As a matter of fact, it was almost all peaceful up until about 10 minutes ago. What happened today was that people from word of mouth and social media were so moved by yesterday that they came out. They took the streets in High Point and Greensboro and Winston-Salem and Burlington and Lexington, all across the Triad. The message was heard loud and clear. One of my favorite moments from earlier today was in High Point when they set up barricades around the police department before the protesters got there, just in case, because they didn't know what was going to happen. And once the protesters got there, the police chief in High Point actually stepped over those barricades and went into the crowd to talk one-on-one with every single person there who wanted to share a story. It was a moment when they were able to de-escalate and have a real conversation, a moment of hope for our community. Right now, we are starting to see more people gather in Greensboro, and as you just heard Alma say, there's still a sizable crowd in High Point. We have crews all across the Triad. They are getting ready for you right now. What we know, as of tonight, Governor Cooper said if need be, we do have extra resources that can be called into the Triad to help out. He's not been taken up on that quite yet, as far as we know. We don't know if he will be, but there are National Guard members and SBI and Highway Patrol that are standing by to be able to help if they have to come in. We also know that the city of Graham right now was under a 9 o'clock curfew. At the moment, that curfew seems to be going good. We haven't heard of any kind of violators. Also, Fayetteville is under a curfew at this moment. Here in the Triad, city leaders have not chosen to enforce a curfew. They haven't seen the need for it. Hopefully, the protests and demonstrations in Greensboro remain peaceful and that won't become an issue. We do know that there is a large police presence in both High Point and Greensboro at the moment. They are there trying to keep the protesters safe, to make sure they are heard, but in a safe manner. Here's what we also know. Last night, there was a lot of, let's just call it was, there was violence at this time of night, right about now, 24 hours ago. Is that happening again? Let's get to Jess Winters in downtown Greensboro.
Okay. Yeah, man, later. Bye.
Hey, Ben, so speaking of safety, we are at a safe distance from the protesters right now. The last time you checked in with me, I had to abruptly cut off because we were getting accosted by one of the protesters. But I do want to mention, this was a protester that had just got to South Elm Street. The people who had been peacefully protesting for 4 hours in downtown Greensboro today, they were at the Civil Rights Center and Museum, they were at the Guilford County Courthouse, they spent 9 minutes on their knees standing in solidarity. They have dispersed. That's what GPD has told us. That's what we've witnessed with our own eyes. A lot of those peaceful protesters have left and went home. We saw a lot of children packing up and leaving with their families. They have gone home. This is a new group. that has entered the protester realm in downtown Greensboro tonight. So there was one individual, she wasn't too fond of me as I was doing a live shot here on our live stream, WFMY News 2, and I don't exactly know what she was saying because I was speaking at the same time, but there was some sort of verbal altercation with my crew here, and then all of a sudden things were thrown at us. So we did end up having to run, and we were chased a bit. We don't know exactly what was thrown at us. I think I saw some drinks, but that is what happened. So I just want to let you know that I'm okay, and we are keeping a safe distance at that time. That's why you can't see the group behind me. Maybe you can, Kyle, if you can really zoom in there. They're off of East Friendly Street in the parking lot between two law firms. And the last time you checked in, I said there was a group of about 500 to 700 people. That's not the case anymore from what I could tell from this vantage point. We are pretty far away, but it looks like the crowd is a bit smaller, maybe 200 people. And that's where we are tonight. I would say around, when I was going live last night around 11 o'clock, that's when violence started. We don't know if that's going to happen tonight, Ben. It's just going to have to unfold in front of our eyes, and we'll keep you updated.
Thank you, Jessica. We do have crews all across the Triad right now, including another one in Greensboro. I want to point out that the demonstration tonight is on the opposite side of where it was last night, over on Friendly Street, Friendly Avenue, where we have Kevin Kennedy as well.
Hey guys, we are on Eugene Street and Market Street, a little bit up from where Jess is right now. Now, earlier today we were in High Point. We just got down here to Greensboro just a short time ago. So the police presence that we're seeing right now is fairly substantial. From what I can tell, it looks like the protesters or the marchers are making their way up Eugene Street towards us right now. However, there's a fairly large police presence that appears to kind of be blocking them around Friendly Avenue. Now, from what we could tell a short time ago, it looks like a number of those officers were actually equipped with riot gear. You could probably see the blue and red lights right now. So it appears at least that the police officers have them kind of blocked off right around Friendly Avenue from where we are at this moment. We're going to go ahead and continue up just a little bit, try to get a little bit of a better look at what's going on, and as soon as we can try to get you some more information, we'll go ahead and bring it to you. For now, though, I'll toss it back to you in the studio, Ben.
Thank you, Kevin. Jess, stay safe out there. So I want to take you back to 24 hours ago so we can compare where we were then to see where we are now. Around this time, 24 hours ago, there was a train that was going through downtown Greensboro. The demonstrators tried to stand on the track to block that train from going through. That is when police pushed them off using tear gas, and rocks were thrown, water bottles were thrown. At that point, things went downhill. Kevin, I know that you are standing by. Are you seeing any indications that this could become destructive or violent today? Kevin, I don't know if you can hear me.
Well, you know, it certainly, yeah, I can, Ben. Certainly tough to tell, obviously. I think the concern is certainly there. Clearly, police are taking that as a possibility. They're in riot gear. There's a strong showing of police force out here right now. And as I look up Eugene Street towards Market behind me, you can see a lot more police officers that are on their way up here right now. So certainly I think there is a strong concern and a possibility that this could become violent, but obviously until it does, you know, we just don't know. So we will be here. We will wait and see. Certainly the hope is, I think, that it doesn't. That's what police are trying to do. And as you heard Jess talk about, a number of protesters have actually already gone home. So this small faction of people here, we don't really know if they're protesters or if they're just coming out for whatever reason. We're not really sure. The hope is that they're not going to do anything violent. And at least until they do something, let's assume they don't, or let's hope they don't. But right now, certainly police not wanting to take any chances. There's a fairly large police presence. And from what we can tell, and it's a little bit tough from our vantage point, there's probably about maybe 150 or 200, if you want to call them protesters, we could certainly call them protesters, that are gathering down there. And police have kind of, I guess, cordoned them off. Certainly in a situation like this, police officers want to stop them from getting in some situations or some places or some streets or whatever, but they also want to make sure that they can have a way for the protesters to evacuate the area if that's what it comes to. So they want to make sure that there's an opening so that if they need to, they can try to get the protesters to move out in that area. Right now, As I said a little bit ago, it does look like more police officers are kind of moving down to this area. Again, we're in downtown Greensboro around Eugene Street and Friendly. That's where these protesters have kind of started to kind of gather, if you will, or that's where they've essentially been kind of blocked off by police officers. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to stay down here. We're going to try to get a little bit of a closer look, obviously from a safe distance, but we'll try to get a little bit of a closer look and try to better understand exactly what is taking place. And then as we do, Ben, we'll certainly bring you the latest information. Back to you, my friend.
Thank you, Kevin. I always love his opinions. He's one of our most experienced reporters around here and has covered so many of these before. We know right now that there is that crowd in Greensboro. There also is a demonstration in High Point. At this very moment, police have been trying to get people off the streets of downtown. Tear gas was used a little bit earlier. We also know that around this time last night is when things took a turn for the worse. Let's see if that will happen again tonight. Hopefully it won't. Hopefully it will remain peaceful as it has through much of the day. WFMY News 2's Adoria Chumba is in Greensboro with a look at what's going on.
All right, I am here on Market Street, right across from the old courthouse, and we have the protesters on a different street there on Friendly Avenue. Behind me, you can see with the lights here, the protesters are on that street there, heading towards the other end of Friendly Avenue. So we have been following them all day for about 5 hours. They were peaceful throughout the day, again, stopping and chanting. But this evening, though, right now, you know, we had to pull away from the core of the protesters to step away from them. There was some individuals that did come up to us and, you know, with some fighting words, and so we decided to just split from that group and head away towards an area that's safer. But right now we're just monitoring the marchers still as they make their way on Friendly Avenue, where we have our crew on the other side as well, just to kind of like monitor what is happening. Again, they just walked on Friendly Avenue. You can see behind us there, they've cleared that area. We have heard the police sirens on the other end briefly there, which is where the protesters are heading towards. And if we'll pan the camera over here towards that side, you can see the police cars over there as well with their lights on. Again, the police have been sort of like following at a safe distance away from the real center of the protesters, unlike yesterday when around this time they were face on face with each other, you know, with the marchers really verbally confronting the officers, and then at occasions you had stones thrown, you had tear gas, you had you know, pepper spray and all that. Really rowdy and chaotic situation there. We also did have the businesses on Elm Street that had their windows busted out, and then some of them also their property looted. All of that now has been boarded up, and we did see some peaceful messages written on that wall by some of the marchers who started gathering around 5 p.m. This evening. Again, like we have been emphasizing, things have been peaceful all day into the evening, but again, just right now it's been a little tense situation that we had to separate ourselves from the core area where the marchers were, but we are still following them as they're making their way up Friendly Avenue. Again, we're going to stay on this developing story and monitor the marchers as they make their way throughout downtown Greensboro. We'll take it back to you.
So one of the things you're noticing when we go out to the reporters is their face is very dark right now. That is because for their safety, we have asked them to turn off that camera light because it is like a flame to a moth when you go to a protest and it gets very tense and heated. You get a lot more attention with that, and we do not want them in harm's way, just like we don't want anyone in harm's way. The police out there right now trying to do what they can to keep the peace. We have heard on social media that there might be some counter protesters in the area, but we cannot confirm that yet. We have crews walking around that perimeter like you just saw, trying to find out what they can. If we do confirm that, we will bring that back to you. But right now, that is just a rumor on social media, not one you should probably be paying attention to. We also want to point out that we need your help here. If you are in the area or you know what's going on, you have friends that have pictures, please send them our way. Just send them to news@wfmy.com. Right now we have Kevin Kennedy, who is on that edge of that protest.
Okay, guys, so we've moved a little bit down. We moved one block down. We were still on Eugene Street. We're now on Eugene Street in Friendly, and as you can see, well, police officers walking by us right now with riot gear, with pepper spray, it looks like, and they've got some shields of their own. So that's the serious nature of at least what they're preparing for right now. Certainly, we hope that it doesn't come to that point, but police officers not wanting to take any chances. They are preparing for that. Friendly Avenue at Eugene here is blocked off. It looks like the crowd has basically been kind of, I don't want to say blocked in because I'm sure there's a way out, but they're down on Belmead right now, kind of right across from the new Hyatt Place Hotel and the Grasshopper Stadium. So that's where everybody is kind of gathering right now. There's a much larger police presence that is right down by that group of protesters or what have you. We haven't really heard a whole lot of yelling or chanting or anything like that. And then to also be clear, at least at this point, we've not heard of any sort of real violence or what have you. We are getting some reports of maybe some light vandalism, but we've not been able to confirm that yet. But at this point, it does not appear, at least from our vantage point, that we've seen any sort of violence or any sort of outrage or physical force or anything like that towards police officers, towards buildings or anything like that in regards to breaking or damaging or busting windows or anything like we saw last night in Greensboro. So we're going to go ahead, continue to monitor this situation. Again, we are in downtown Greensboro on Friendly and Eugene. The group of protesters down around Belmead right now. And it seems like the group hasn't really grown that much over about the past hour or so. It seems like it's kind of around that 150, maybe a little bit more. Again, it's a little bit tough for us to tell because of the distance that we're trying to keep to kind of maintain our safety or what have you. But we can tell you that it seems like it's about that size. I can tell you, though, that in the last maybe 30 minutes or so since we've got here, there's a much larger police presence in this area. It certainly seems like there's a much larger police presence, and those police officers are now much more equipped in regards to shields and pepper spray and full body armor in case, and I stress that, in case something were to go kind of sideways right now. So, okay, hold on real quick. I just want to show you something right now. So I just had a officer that was standing on the corner starting to yell at this group of officers to get coming a little quicker. They were walking. It sounds like they're asking them to kind of double time it and to hustle it up. So this group of officers in full gear, gas masks, are now told to kind of run and hustle and get down there. Obviously, that would be cause for concern in terms of whatever is taking place, whatever the emotions are running high down there, if you will. Certainly there is a concern that this could escalate, and police officers want as many other officers down there to try to control the peace and maintain the peace as best they can. So that is the very latest. We're going to go ahead and stick around here. We will bring you any new developments once those things happen, and let's hope it doesn't. I'll toss it back to you in the studio, though, for right now.
Let's get to Jess Winters on the other side to see what's going on there.
Yeah, Ben, I'm a little bit closer than Kevin Kennedy is, and what we feared would happen looks like it's about to happen. What we hoped wouldn't happen looks like it is going to happen. There is now GPD officers, also Guilford County Sheriff's Office deputies in riot gear, in tactical gear with their shields. We just had a bunch of GPD officers run behind us, and they started to form a line down there, and they said move back up with their bicycles, acting as barriers. This is a repeat. For me, it's like deja vu of what I saw just last night. It's kind of a surreal sight to me. I can't believe it's happening again, except this time it's not happening on South Elm. It's happening near Friendly. and in between Belmead as well, and police have a barricade around this right now, and it looks like a lot of the protesters are talking back. I was just walking alongside a couple of protesters who say this protest, the one that's been going on for the past hour or so, is very unorganized. It's not the same protest that was happening earlier today. That was happening for 4 hours, which was a march, a peaceful march, where people were holding signs, where they were standing in solidarity, where they were taking knees for 9 minutes, signifying the 9 minutes that George Floyd had a knee to his neck, eventually leading to his death. So this is becoming more rowdy as the night is unfolding. Police lights everywhere you look in downtown Greensboro. And I do want to let you know, if you are going to work Monday morning, tomorrow morning in downtown Greensboro, you are going to be coming to a different Greensboro. There is graffiti on business doors. Businesses are boarded up for fear that other people, these people, we don't know, for fear that their business will be vandalized. It kind of looks like a hurricane is going to pass through Greensboro. I can assure you a hurricane is not on the radar. So there are a ton of people down here, hundreds I would say. Jeff, how many people would you say are down here?
About 300.
About 300 people are down here. A ton of cops are down here. They're making announcements over the loudspeaker telling people to leave. I don't know if you can pick that up, if you can hear that over the microphone. Anyone impeding normal traffic will be arrested. That is what the GPD announcement on the loudspeaker said. Everyone must leave the area now so normal operations can continue. GPD is saying if they do not leave, they will be arrested. And you see a lot of the protesters have their hands in the air. They're screaming the same chants from earlier. Don't shoot. Oh, here we go. People are running. People are running. Must be tear gas, people are running, hands in the air, people are running. We're at a safe distance, we're behind the police. Oh, some sort of spark, some sort of firework. You see flames now, flames. People are gathering around the flames. It looks like there's some sort of firework that just shot off in the air. Okay, we're watching this unfold. The announcement keeps saying everyone must leave the area now or you will be arrested. It's not just a warning, it's a promise from GPD. The demonstration is now over. You can see police are pushing through the line, walking through the tear gas.
Glass is being broken on our right.
Glass is being broken on our right, according to one of my photographers. We just heard glass shattering. So one of the businesses down here is being vandalized. Okay. We're gonna try to take you closer. We're gonna try to take you closer, but safely. Safety is our #1 priority. Okay. Follow along, everyone. Follow along. Okay. Okay, I can see a lot of tear gas. I can see a lot of police officers with their bikes. I'm hearing loud noises. Not a lot of protesters over there. It looks like police have cleared the majority of people out over here. And they're walking toward, they're walking toward downtown. And I don't see any protesters anymore over here, but people are still running around. I'm hearing loud noises. I heard a loud shattering of glass in this direction. Kyle, are you behind me? Okay. Okay, I see a ton of protesters running. Here they are. Okay, Ben, back to you. We're gonna watch this unfold.
So we just saw a big change right there. It's been a mostly peaceful day. That is not peaceful. That was different. We have live team coverage coming up on WFMY News 2 at 11. Stick with us on air for that. And right here on Facebook, we'll continue to bring you that team coverage too. Breaking right now, after another day of peaceful demonstrations, things took a turn after dark. Protesters clashed with police.
Just hours earlier, a powerful moment of dialogue in High Point. Barricades were set up around the police department to keep protesters from entering, but Police Chief Kenneth Schultz jumped over those metal barriers to talk to the crowd. He wanted to hear their message and talk with them.
Is the largest group of demonstrators we have seen, about 500 to 700 people marching through the streets of Greensboro. We have live team coverage tonight as protesters get louder and their numbers grow.
We begin with WFMY News 2's Jess Winters live with an unfolding situation in downtown Greensboro. Jess. We apologize. We understand that Jess is in the middle of an unfolding scene where tear gas is being set off right now.
She was trying to find safety just a second ago. And right now we do know that we also have Kevin Kennedy down on the scene. Can we get to him? Because just a moment ago there were flames on the ground in downtown Greensboro.
And we'll be checking in with Kevin as well. We have team coverage, like I said, but let's set the stage for the people, because just moments ago, police were saying anybody who is out there needs to disperse. Let's now go to WFMY News 2's Kevin Kennedy in downtown Greensboro with the very latest.
Okay, guys, so obviously you heard Jess talking a little bit ago. Well, things have certainly taken a horrible turn right now. There's pepper spray that's in the air. I'm going to have Sean kind of pan down, and you can see the looting and the violence that is taking place. I can tell you that we just walked through a decent amount of pepper spray that's in the air right now. So I apologize. I'm struggling a little bit talking and my eyes are a little bit watery, but you can see the looting that is taking place, you know, right now. This all happened within about the last 10 minutes or so. A large group of police presence, let's go ahead and walk on down. A large group of police presence kind of came out and dispersed the crowd. And then if you can imagine a number of streets in the downtown area, what took place then is that the folks just kind of started scattering in different directions. And when they scattered in different directions, they started coming up a number of different streets. We're walking, you know, right now down, let's see, what is it? I'm not sure the street. We're on Friendly right now, and that's where a lot of this looting is taking place. And I can tell you that the pepper spray is still in the air. You can certainly get it in your eyes, which is why I threw some goggles up really quickly. And it's certainly in your lungs right now. But you can see a number of what it looks like garbage cans and things like that that have been knocked over. We've been told there are reports of some spray paint buildings being spray painted as this looting is taking place. And certainly it's tough to look at. But it is unfolding right now. There's probably, it looks like about maybe 100 or 150, 200 people that are out here right now. How many are taking part in this? Certainly we don't want to speculate. Not everybody that's out here is taking part in this. But we certainly do see a lot of destruction and a lot of violence taking place, vandalism, if you will, in regards to this downtown area. We're going to go ahead and kind of continue to make our way. I can tell you that at least my eyes have cleared a little bit. It doesn't seem like the pepper spray is in the air as thick as it was just a short time ago. That being said, there's still a pretty significant crowd out here, and it does seem like there is still some sort of activity, violent activity or vandalism type stuff going on. I'm going to go ahead and kind of regroup, take a drink of water, and I'll toss it back to you guys right now.
I apologize if I lose my voice here. We walked through a good bit of tear gas. We were on Eugene Street, and that's where police, I'm going to take my mask off now. I put it on for fear of tear gas. That's where police were forming a line. They took out their tactical gear. They were all armed up with their shields, and they were telling people over a megaphone, they said, if you do not leave now, you will get arrested. And with their bikes, they were saying, move, 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 warning people again over that megaphone, if you do not leave, you will get arrested. I saw a bunch of protesters put their hands in the air. Some were shouting back at them, but eventually tear gas was thrown, and a ton of them dispersed. And then all of a sudden, okay, turn around, Jeff, turn around. We see a tactical team of GPD officer, also Guilford County Sheriff's deputies walking toward us. This is the intersection of Commerce Place and Friendly Avenue. This is the intersection of Commerce Place and Friendly Avenue, walking down the street. This is downtown Greensboro right now, looking like a war zone. If you are going to work Monday morning, tomorrow morning, you will be waking up to a different Greensboro. There is graffiti, there is shattered glass, there are boarded windows, there are messes everywhere you look. This is downtown Greensboro. We're walking in the middle of the street. And I will say there were peaceful protests for about 4 hours today, peaceful protests that were organized, and then that group left, dispersed. There were families a part of that group that were peacefully protesting. They were kneeling. They were marching in solidarity all day saying, "Don't shoot, I can't breathe, Black Lives Matter." And then organizers told me they were going home. GPD told me that group left, and we witnessed it with our own eyes. And this is a different group tonight. And this is very reminiscent of the violence that we saw last night in terms of shattered glass when I was on Eugene Street and GPD was trying to disperse the crowd. We heard shattered glass, then we saw fireworks, we saw sparks. We didn't even know what was going on. We certainly saw tear gas, but we saw fireworks in return and people running. And we're hearing GPD shout again. Okay, we have to move, we have to get out of the way so law enforcement can do their job. We have to get out of the way.
Jess, thank you so much. Take care of yourself and make sure you get to a safe place. Safety, a top priority right now. Let's get you up to speed. Yesterday, there was one arrest made, and that's from the Greensboro Police Department. But today, we're still waiting to hear from GPD about any arrests tonight. But as you heard from Jessica, people are being told to leave right now. If not, they will get arrested. Our team coverage continues right now with WFMY News 2's Kevin Kennedy with the very latest from downtown Greensboro.
Okay, so we are on the corner of Commerce and Friendly right now. You see a large presence, a police presence that are right here. They basically blocked off Commerce Street and Friendly right now. They've got this area blocked off. This was the spot that we showed you just about maybe 4 or 5 minutes ago, where there was a lot of what appeared to be protesting or looting in the street. Now, as you can see, the police officers have formed basically a blue wall, if you will, on the across Friendly Street at Commerce, and you can see a number of protesters that are in front of them as police officers kind of march towards them right now. You can see, hopefully, a number of these people have their arms up in the air as police officers in force are moving up Friendly Street in hopes of dispersing this crowd. We're going to go ahead and stay right behind police as we walk towards this group. A little bit ago, we can tell you that tear gas was dispersed in the air and pepper spray that we had to walk through. Right now, police officers continue to basically just kind of march forward as this group continues to backpedal on Friendly Avenue. We're kind of going, this is the area just a little bit ago that was garbage cans. You can see that were knocked over, what have you. At this point, in terms of any sort of violence or any sort of throwing of anything towards police officers, we've not seen that at this point. The protesters or the marchers certainly did kind of, as we mentioned, dump a lot of garbage cans and things like that. We have heard reports. Of some looting and some breaking of windows and things like that, but we've not seen any sort of violence towards police officers as of now. We've now made our way up to the intersection here. Police officers have their mask on. They are basically yelling at the crowd to disperse immediately and to leave the area right away. And if you don't, you may be arrested. The crowd that we can see does not seem to be that large. There certainly seems to be a greater police presence than a number of protesters here at this intersection right now. I'm going to try to sneak my way up to right behind the police line just to get a better look. It appears to us there's probably, at least the group that they're talking about, is maybe 20 to 30 people that are still here that have chosen not to or are refusing to leave this area right now. Police officers are being given commands And they are now walking again, once again, walking up Friendly Avenue, asking this crowd, a small crowd, let's be honest, let's call it like it is, it's a small crowd, to disperse. The people that are out here, the protesters that are out here, are now walking backwards, hands in the air. We're going to go ahead and follow them and just listen to what's taking place right now. Okay, guys. So let's see if Sean can come up just a little bit closer. We can see the crowd. I see a sign, Black Lives Matter. We're immediately behind the police wall. Again, like I said, the group of protesters that are out here.
Again, the demonstration is now over. Anyone impeding normal traffic will be arrested.
You heard that's
The demonstration is now over. Everyone must leave the area now so that normal operations may continue. Anyone continuing to demonstrate will be arrested and detained for a minimum of 24 hours. Again, the demonstration is now over. Anyone impeding traffic will be arrested.
All right, you have been watching the scene unfolding in downtown Greensboro, a day of peaceful protest turning rowdy yet again tonight. Let's head back now to WFMY News 2's Jess Winters, who's found a safe place to give us a live report. Jess.
Hey, Julie, you might be able to hear it for yourself on the megaphone. GPD is saying this demonstration is over. If you are impeding traffic, you will be arrested. This demonstration is over. They keep saying it over and over again on the loudspeaker. There are not many demonstrators, many protesters at this time. I would equate it to dozens, maybe 100 at this point, but we're behind the police line, so we don't have a fair vantage point. We are safe at this time, but I am stepping over shattered glass. We just walked by Elon Law, and at least 3 of the windows have been broken, and we have to tiptoe around it. There are trash cans. Look at this. Kyle, zoom in on this. Trash, beer bottles, right in the middle of the street. Right in the middle of the street. Where are we right now? Because this isn't Greensboro. This isn't Greensboro. This doesn't look like Greensboro tonight. But we're behind the police line. You can see that they're in tactical gear, and they are pushing the protesters, pushing the demonstrators further and further down the street. Hey, Kyle, if you want to pan over too, you can see some boarded up windows. What I was telling you about earlier, what you're going to be waking up to, because I hope you're not coming down here tonight, so what you're going to be waking up to is a lot of boarded windows, a lot of boarded doors, and a lot of spray paint, a lot of graffiti, potentially trash in the street. Hopefully we can get some people to clean it up, but we're hearing some shouting now. We're hearing a lot of shouting. A lot of people are getting in verbal altercations with police as they stand in line. And if you do hear any profanity, I do apologize. We cannot control what happens on this live feed. This is unfolding in front of our very eyes. And we have had some altercations with some of the protesters earlier today. We were chased. Again, this is not the same group that was out here protesting peacefully earlier today. This is an entirely different group that formed about an hour ago. When I was walking with one of the protesters, he said it was very unorganized and he wasn't sure the direction they were going in. And then when we were by Eugene Street, that is when the tipping point of the violence started tonight. And really, that was about 15 minutes ago. That's when sparks were flying. The protesters were throwing some sort of fireworks, some sort of firecracker, and GPD was throwing tear gas in response and asking them to leave just as they are asking them to leave right now. They are not tolerating it tonight. They are not tolerating it tonight. They're saying, go home or we will arrest you. There was only one arrest yesterday, and that was a counter protester earlier in the afternoon when it was peaceful. There have been no arrests last night during all the vandalism. They did say that they would be reviewing some surveillance footage, but no arrests. And as far as we know, no arrests tonight, but this all started not but 15 minutes ago. So we don't know what the rest of the night has entailed. Back to you in the studio for now.
So I do want to point out that some of these demonstrators are being moved by this moment right here. That's what Jessica was just talking about. When all of the violence really started down there and the chaos, we saw about 15-20 minutes ago this flame be thrown as police were telling people they have to move or they're going to get arrested. It is also worth noting that we know some of those demonstrators plan on being arrested, and they might be okay with that because all day long on social media, there have been posts being shared about money being raised for bail for people who are arrested and numbers to contact if it happens to you. So we will have to stand by and see what unfolds tonight from there.
Ben, you were anchoring last night. You saw the situation overnight in downtown Greensboro compared to what you're seeing tonight. It appears to me that police, last night they were stationary. Tonight certainly looks different tonight with them being on the move.
Absolutely. There's much more of a police presence for one thing. Yesterday they were 1 line deep. Now they're 2-3 lines deep. And we also know that over in High Point they are dealing with a similar situation. There was tear gas used earlier there tonight. Alma McCarty is live. Is that still the case?
Ben, that is in fact not still the case out here. We are seeing a very empty downtown. Actually, I hear myself, so I'm going to take my earpiece out. I apologize for that if it gets tangled in my mask, which I'm just going to take off. Anyway, the situation down here was not as big as what you guys are dealing with over in Greensboro. There were not as many people. There was an earlier protest today outside really of the police department itself. We ended up here later on in the night because there was a small group of demonstrators that were here. We don't know what they exactly did. We did see a few windows that were broken, but I do want to show you some video that we shot earlier today. So if you guys could just go ahead, roll that video. I'm watching it back here on my phone in real time. What you see in this video is some officers who are deploying tear gas. They're deploying pepper spray, but they're shooting it at the ground. They were not shooting it at the protesters' faces. They kind of waved it in their faces and then they shot it at the ground, really to break up a demonstration. There were quite a number of folks out here, police officers in their tactical gear, walking down Main Street. They turned onto MLK where there were a number of protesters who were gathered in a group. This was a very small group of people compared to the number of folks that were out there at the peaceful protest this afternoon. They made a line similar to what you're hearing about in Greensboro, a much smaller scale. There are honestly not any cops or any police officers, I should say, in this part of right now. We are still trying to get what is going on in other parts of the city. Jess had mentioned that, folks were being told to go home or they'll get arrested. There was not that threat necessarily. However, there was, sorry, I can hear myself again. They were being told to be, they were dispersed with the pepper spray on the ground and they were told to go home. And it looks like people done that here in High Point. So what I can report right now is the streets of High Point are clear. You can check out what's going on in Greensboro.
People heeding the warning from police in High Point. Let's get an update now from the scene in downtown Greensboro with WFMY News 2's Jess Winters. Last time we saw you, Jess, a lot of activity, a lot of people moving around. Actually, our crews, we have several of them in downtown Greensboro. So we're going to head now to WFMY News 2's Adoria Chumba with the very latest in downtown Greensboro. Adori.
All right, Julie, we are walking on Elm Street now. You can see the line of police officers right there in their riot gear with the protesters on the other side. You can see what we're talking about when the destruction has started just right around 11 o'clock. Look and see that business there, the windows on. We've been walking all down here to see some of the windows of the businesses that they started targeting just around 11 o'clock with that confrontation with the police, and they had to deploy tear gas. And they are pushing up on the protesters who are on the other side of Elm Street, walking south side of Elm Street right now. There's about 50 of the officers. One woman just ran up towards the police officers. I'm just going to let you watch what is happening right there. not sure who she is, but you can see as the officers are moving, they're trying to pick away all the debris that's been pushed onto the street from trash cans. Again, remember, they did say that anybody who's still out here will get arrested. You can see pointing over there, speaking to some of the people there, I guess, warning them and telling them to go home. All right, we are making our way towards Washington intersection. You can see the road all blocked off here. The protesters put up this all over the road. Again, keeping in mind, earlier today, we've been with these guys from like 5 o'clock to just now, and we did say that another group just came, and that's when things took a different turn. All day today it had been peaceful and symbolic, but all of a sudden, just about 15-20 minutes ago, just at the top of the hour, everything just took a different turn, and you can see that's when the Greensboro police officers, a different set, taking over, ready for this kind of situation. And you can see some of the protesters pushing back, some of them exchanging words and being verbal towards the police officers. Again, this is a different scene than it was earlier in the day. This is not what we expected after seeing the peaceful protest today, but this is what we feared would be the outcome. And you can see the police getting ready for anything that is going to happen. Again, trying to disperse the crowd, but then they've pushed them back down on South Elm. And you can see over there, some of them dispersed. Down further down over here again, just about 50 officers here in their riot gear for this situation. Again, it's a different, just an hour ago, this was not the scene, but right now it's a different scene here in downtown Greensboro. What was and has been throughout the day a peaceful protest has taken a different turn this evening. I'm sending it right back to you in the studio. We'll stay right here on this.
Adora, thank you. Yes, definitely a much different scene. We have a couple of different teams downtown in Greensboro giving you different perspectives. WFMY News 2's Kevin Kennedy is also following the situation downtown. Kevin, what's the latest?
Yeah, guys, we are at the 200 block of Elm Street right now. We're actually in the middle of two different police walls that have kind of lined up, so we're in a very safe place right now. But you can see what these people have done. They've knocked over some of these newspaper stands. I can say that we've walked down on Elm Street for about maybe 3 or 4 blocks, and I can tell you a lot of the businesses around here, unfortunately, I can tell you there's a lot of smashed windows. We've seen smashed ATMs. We've seen graffiti on a number of the buildings. We just actually passed a restaurant here, and it looked like there was actually, if not customers inside, certainly wait staff and other staff inside, and they're just kind of like, what do I do? And right now the best thing for them to do is actually just to stay inside where they are. We've pushed our way up now. We're on Elm Street in Washington. You can see the police line in front of us. The protesters, if you want to call them protesters at this point, are on one side. And then on the other side as well. We're kind of smack dab in the middle. Not a number. I don't want to make it out to be like a large number of people are out here, but certainly police have consistently asked them over the past 30 or 45 minutes to disperse the area or you will be arrested, and that hasn't happened, unfortunately, yet. There has been no dispersal. As police march, they just continue to either back up or walk in the same direction, but they have not dispersed. They've not left the area, so police continue to maintain the presence that they have out here right now. And unfortunately, as we continue our marching, our walking with these protesters and with police, as we go by different businesses, we look to our left and we look to our right, and I think I can even show you something. I'll give you an example. Look at this right here. This is what we're seeing all up and down Elm Street. Glass shattered, windows broken, ATMs, as I said earlier, shattered. People apparently walking by and knocking these out with something. Police right now certainly outnumber the protesters that are out here. At this point, they are criminals, when not all of them, but certainly some that are committing these acts of violence on these businesses. Police trying to get a kind of handle on things right now. And unfortunately at this point, there's a number of people that still maintain staying out here and have not dispersed despite repeated asking and efforts of the police to get them to disperse. So we're going to go ahead and continue to monitor the situation. We'll continue to kind of, I guess, follow along with police, keeping a safe distance, but try to bring you the very latest of what is taking place down here in Greensboro, certainly as it does. I'll toss it back to you guys in the studio right now.
In all this chaos, we want to point out that the mayor and the chief of police said most of the damage last night was done from people outside our city who came here. We do not know if that's the case today. I do know on social media all day long, people have been saying Greensboro was the place to be, so it might have been an advertisement for more people to come here.
You have been looking at these live pictures, Kevin Kennedy, outside Triad stage, a popular place to see performances. Just up the street, we also saw damage over at Blue Denim, another popular restaurant known for its etouffee and different Louisiana-type restaurant fare. Popular places in Greensboro targeted tonight. Let's head now to WFMY News 2's Jess Winters with the very latest now from her perspective in downtown Greensboro.
Julie, we're at a standstill right now. We're sandwiched between two lines of GPD officers. There's one to my right, one to my left. We're possibly in the safest place possible. I just saw another line of law enforcement in their riot gear pull through here, stepping over the trash that is directly to my right on the ground that you can see all throughout the streets of Greensboro tonight. I'm just hoping and praying this will be cleaned up soon enough and we can all go home. A lot of the protesters have left. We saw them disperse on Eugene Street when the violence really started 20-30 minutes ago. We saw many of them disperse, but some of them did have that face-to-face confrontation with a line of police saying, "Don't shoot, don't shoot," when police were commanding them over the megaphone to leave or else you will be arrested. They are not letting what happened last night play out again tonight. Greensboro police are serious. They are not letting us have a repeat of last night where we saw tear gas flying throughout the overnight hours, protesters out until 3:30 a.m. We even saw fires last night. That's not happening right now. Right now, again, we're at a standstill, we're at a pause. I don't know if this will continue. We just have to let it play out. Back to you.
It's hard to comprehend that's happening in our city, isn't it?
It's disheartening because, like you said, with the mayor and with Police Chief Brian James saying that overall yesterday's protests were very calm and that they escalated overnight, and they're blaming some outsiders. Mayor Vaughn called them interlopers for the reason for these the damage in downtown Greensboro. And you're seeing a lot of more damage tonight and also boarded up windows in preparation for what could be happening tonight. So let's continue our coverage now with WFMY News 2's Kevin Kennedy, also live in downtown Greensboro.
Yeah, guys, so we're still on Elm Street. We are at a bit of a standstill. We're between Elm Street and Washington or what have you. We're on the 200 block of Elm Street right now. And look, police are basically, they've formed a wall and they've stopped right now. They were marching, but they've stopped right now. I'm looking ahead of me. I am hearing a little bit of noise, so that does concern me in regards to what could be taking place up front. But as of right now, police officers have basically stopped kind of marching up Elm Street. As we came down Elm Street, as I think I showed you just a little bit ago, unfortunately, I hate to report, but we saw a number of businesses that had their windows broken out. There was probably 3 or 4 places that we saw. We saw a bit of graffiti, red spray paint, excuse me, on a number of the buildings or what have you. So it's not the scene that you like to see. Right now, we've got a situation where we've got police officers on one side of Elm Street, and then we've got police officers on another side of Elm Street, and we're smack dab in the middle. So we're in a very safe place right now. I can tell you that it's, for the most part, the people that are still out here from a protester perspective, whatever, it's a low number. It's a small number. Not what we saw earlier, probably down to maybe 20 or 30. Maybe a little bit more depending on how spread out they are on different sides of the corner. Looks like right now we're going to be moving. So we're going to have to move right now because when police move, we move. We have to stay kind of essentially between police officers.
Between them, that's good, guys.
And that's our goal right now. But as you can see, police have started to kind of line up, if you will. It appears that they're going to start marching. If they do, that's what we're going to do. We basically go step in line with police officers, and indeed we are going to go ahead, it looks like, and they are going to go ahead and march farther up Elm Street. So you can see police officers are behind us. and then we're following police officers. Now we're turning, so we're actually turning off of Elm Street right now, heading up of West Washington. Looks like the crowd that was in front of them on Elm Street has dispersed, although as farther up I look on Elm Street, looks like police have kind of got that area blocked off. There's another real quick, Sean, you can see the Lee Wrangler building. Look right over there, you can see the window is shattered.
Watch out, guys.
As folks, looters, I don't know looters, but at least vandals went ahead and knocked the windows out of that place. So right now we're heading up. Police officers are behind us and in front of us as we kind of continue this pass. We're heading by Liberty Oaks right now. Doesn't look like there's any damage there from what I can tell. But I can tell you that a number of these businesses that we've walked by have seen broken glass. No indication, at least at this point, that we know of where people have done anything besides break the glass in terms of going in, looting, stealing items or anything like that. From what we can tell and from what we've heard, it appears it's just a situation where these people are going by either on their own or as they're marched up or what have you, and they're just knocking out windows, breaking glass for the sake of breaking glass. It does seem like the crowd has dispersed a bit. I'm certainly not seeing as large of a protest presence as I did earlier. As we continue to follow police officers, we're on Washington Street, passing Green right now. I'm not seeing a whole lot of police officers, or excuse me, protesters or folks in front of us. So it seems like there's a chance, and I say that hesitantly, that there's a chance that things may start to kind of calm down just a little bit here. I'm not seeing, again, any protesters in front of us, and police officers, at least some of the ones that are nearby us, have actually taken off their helmets and their gear, if nothing else, to catch their breath or what have you. But certainly it would be a good sign that there is a sense that maybe things are starting to calm down a little bit. But just think about this right now. Here I am, about 11:30 at night, walking down Washington Street, and I've got police cars, probably more than a dozen, police in riot gear behind me. And as I look forward on Washington Street, as we pass City Hall, I've got more police officers, again, in riot gear with masks and pepper spray and tear gas. Unfortunately, that's where we are right now. But it does seem like things have calmed down a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and we'll stay out here as long as it takes to kind of document and chronicle everything that's taking place. But for now, we're going to go ahead and toss it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thanks a lot, Kevin. You can see on your clock there that we have expanded our newscast tonight. We want to make sure that everybody is safe, so we're going to continue to check in with our live field crews to both gauge the situation, but also make sure that they are staying safely distant. So let's check in with WFMY News 2's Adori Achumba. I know police were on the move in Kevin's version of this. Adori, have you been able to see any protesters from your vantage point?
All right, it looks like the protesters have dispersed. At least we didn't see any right here. The police officers are now back to the parking lot here at the Greensboro Police Department. As you can see them here, they are gathered here. They just walked down Washington and got to this point. Again, we didn't see any more protesters as we were making our way here. It appeared that they have dispersed and the police have succeeded in getting them away, and traffic is moving back up here. Again, we did walk through and see, as we were walking through, some of those businesses that had their windows busted out. Again, this is a totally different scene than where we were hours ago. In fact, just about 30 minutes ago was when the intensity began that culminated in what you just saw transpire in the last 30 minutes, where you had police deploying tear gas and coming into confrontation with those protesters for those last 30 minutes. But right now, The police have cleared the downtown area, and they are back here at the Greensboro Police Department parking lot where they're mustering here. Again, there are no protesters here. We do see some other people, onlookers, some of them holding signs, but they are not really engaging right now. It looks like things have sort of settled down for now. Back to you in the studio.
Adori, thank you. So you are looking at the situation unfolding and also de-escalating within the last 40 minutes live here on WFMY News 2 at 11. And I want to point out, here we are 11:35 at night. Ben, you were here last night at 11:35. The scene, much different.
Totally different. At 11:35, the violence and the destruction was just starting to unfold. At 1 a.m. is when the courthouse yesterday got set on fire in Greensboro, the lower level. Clearly, police saying tonight, we are not doing that again. This is going to be nipped in the bud. And clearly, they were able to do that. We'll see if the protesters come back, if they pop up somewhere else. But while we just showed you all that chaos, it is important to give you the context that not all day was like that. There was actually some meaningful discussions that went on today. This was in High Point. The police chief there made his way into the crowd of demonstrators to sit there and have a one-on-one conversation with all of the people. He wanted to hear out exactly what they had to say and why they were out there and what the police department could do different. Take a listen to some of that conversation that our camera captured. Okay, we don't have that for you right now, but we will try to get it on our website for you. What he said basically was, this is High Point. We can do this differently. We can be just here. Tell us what we need to do.
What I found very interesting with that conversation is that Keith Kenneth Schultz with the High Point Police Department actually jumped over the barriers because he purposefully wanted to have that one-on-one conversation with the protesters. And Ben, you were listening to that video. You were listening to the sound bites coming in, and that discussion went from a very tense situation to a very amenable one.
And they had a big crowd, a couple hundred people. And as soon as he did that and he started talking to people, they got back in their cars and left. You could tell that the demonstrators early in the day, that was their goal, to be heard. I think now it's different. What we just saw in Greensboro does not have the same goal. It seems to be a different group.
And speaking of that group, let's check on downtown Greensboro as Greensboro police continue to disperse the crowd with WFMY News 2's Kevin Kennedy.
Hey guys, we're on Washington Street right in front of the Greensboro Police Department. I can tell you that that police presence that was there, that they kind of came back here to kind of take off their gear, to kind of take off their masks, to kind of get to breather well. That is now put back on. The group that was kind of huddled in the parking lot has now formed another line right there. As you can see on the corner right there, there's at least a number of protesters, not many, maybe a dozen or so that are there, and police officers have once again formed a line as protesters, hands up. They've been chanting a little bit, but certainly they have not dispersed like police have been asking them to do for the last hour and a half. So the police officers that once again just a second ago were in that parking lot, taking a breath, getting some water, taking their masks off. They've now once again formed a little bit of a line as I'm counting really quickly what appears to be about maybe 15 or 20 protesters continue to stay out here and continue to stay in the downtown streets of Greensboro, and despite the fact that they have been asked to leave, they're not. And as you can see now, as I look up Washington Avenue, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 10 law enforcement vehicles. A number of bicycles are also kind of rolling in right now. So a bit of a presence that was maybe in a different location has certainly turned here. We've got a number of bicycles, officers that are kind of rolling in right now as well, once again to offer support and backup or what have you. And again, it's to try to just maintain any sort of peace. Unfortunately, we have seen that there has been some violence take place with broken windows and graffiti on a number of businesses in downtown Greensboro. As we were walking along Elm Street, we saw a number of businesses that had broken glass and graffiti spray painted on the sides of the buildings, on the windows, on the doors, or what have you. And the other thing that was really tough or difficult for me to look at was the number of people that were essentially just stuck in their business, people that owned the business or worked there. And certainly you could kind of catch a look at their faces as police and these protesters were moving down their street. And there was certainly a sense of fear or concern. Like, what do we do? Watch real quick, Sean, you're about to back up into something. So, again, police maintain a presence out here because those protesters or demonstrators or what have you, that small group of people just will not leave, despite the fact they've been asked to over and over and over again. About maybe 15 or 20 or so folks continue to stay out here. Police have been staying out here. We will continue to stay out here until things completely calm down. I'll toss it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thanks so much, Kevin. I do want to show something on our screen here. It happened in Burlington tonight. Protesters and officers came together tonight. Take a look at this picture from Facebook. It shows the police chief over there calling for an end to police brutality alongside protesters. The department thanked demonstrators for organizing a meaningful event, similar to what we saw today in High Point, where the police chief came out of the police department, crossed the barrier line, and had, I would assume, a heartfelt conversation about the relationship between police and citizens. Thank you for looking at that. That's been my favorite part of today. I do want to get back to WFMY News 2's Jess Winters, who is downtown Greensboro. Jess, have you been able to see any protesters from your vantage point?
I can, Chad. I'm a little bit closer than Kevin Kennedy was. The Guilford County Sheriff's Office just came in to intervene. Their sirens were going off. About 8 of their patrol cars just pulled up because there was a small group, I would say about 20 protesters that were facing off with this line of police that you see behind me that are still in their tactical gear. But that group of 20 has since dispersed, and now I'm looking to my left over here, and I don't see many more people down here. And look, folks, we have no way to confirm that these people that we see downtown in downtown Greensboro right now have any connection to the protesters we saw, the peaceful protesters we saw earlier today that were protesting injustices, protesting inequalities, protesting in the name of George Floyd. We have no way of knowing because this was a new wave of protesters that came in here around, honestly, it was 10:55. It was right before we were about to go live on the 11 p.m. newscast when we were on Eugene Street. That's when things started to get rowdy. That's when things started to get violent. That's when GPD started to make those announcements saying, hey, if you do not leave right now, we will arrest you. Do not test us. And that's when people started dispersing because tear gas was deployed. Then we saw some sparks flying. I don't know if it was a firework, a firecracker was thrown. Then we heard shattered glass from every corner. We didn't even know where it was coming from. Just to name a few, I saw some law firms that their windows were destroyed. And then I did see Wrangler, right, Kyle? Wrangler, you saw someone shattering the glass there. Elon Law, we saw a couple of their windows completely shattered. We're just constantly stepping over glass. We're stepping over trash in the middle of the streets in downtown Greensboro. It looks like a different world right now. We're seeing blue lights. This has become the new norm for me because I was here last night. I was here when all of it was unfolding last night, and I heard Ben Briscoe talking about it. He was saying, yes, the violence last night, it didn't really start until 11:30. Because I remember being on the 11 p.m. newscast saying, it is not violent here. Yes, we've had some verbal altercations, things, heightened tensions, but nothing has gotten violent. And then as soon as the show ended, then people started jumping on cars. That's when we saw tear gas and pepper spray, and we saw windows shattered. And we sort of had a repeat of that tonight, but the difference is Greensboro police this time around said, no, we are not just standing here this time. We are not going to just take it this time. We are taking action, and we are pushing you out, quite literally pushing you out, saying move, move, and deploying tear gas. So I'm going to take a look behind me because I haven't in a while. So police are still holding their line right there, and it looks like many, if not all, of the protesters have left the immediate area of the Greensboro Police Department. I do see a couple of people walking downtown, but no groups formed at this time. Back to you.
Jess, thank you so much. I have been in contact with the Greensboro Police Department, or I've asked them if there have been any arrests today. I'm still waiting to hear back from the Greensboro Police Department. But we want to point out there was one arrest yesterday. It was a counter protester trying to interrupt a peaceful protest. And a lot of people have been asking us, why was there only one arrest made yesterday? Because we have seen the overnight damage caused by these outsiders who came into downtown Greensboro.
And Julie, this live picture right here is a good example of that, because just a second ago you saw all of the bicycles lined up in a row. There's only one row of them there. What the problem was last night is they didn't have enough support down there to really arrest people, because if one of those officers goes off to arrest someone, that creates a hole in the middle of that line and puts everyone at risk out there.
And the police chief, Brian James, talked about that. There was an afternoon press conference with the Guilford County Sheriff, Danny Rogers, as well as Mayor Nancy Vaughn and other Greensboro City Council members. And Chief James addressed that. We asked him, why was there only one arrest when so much damage had happened overnight? And that's exactly what he said. He said, first of all, people are more important than the property, but he also talked about the tactics of Greensboro police, and he mentioned how moving out of formation, or that is basically their tactic, and so they didn't want to break that line to put anybody at risk.
He also did point out that there's a lot of video being taken right now. You've seen the clips on social media. You've seen all the ones that we've been able to show you. They're going to review all of that video and figure out if charges should be filed, who they should be filed against. This is not over.
Right, there's going to be a lot of video, there's a lot of damage, at least 20 businesses downtown damaged last night. You've been watching the live pictures with us here on this late edition of WFMY News 2 to 11. You see even more damage of windows busted out. So there will be more investigating to be done. But we will continue to monitor the situation in downtown Greensboro. You can see police on bicycles still on the move and many officers still on the scene.
And before we go, I just want to leave you with what Governor Roy Cooper had to say. We didn't get a chance to play it because all of the breaking news that happened, but he really stressed that he doesn't want all of this to take away from the message of what this is supposed to be about. Remember that over the past 2 days, the vast majority of the demonstrations, they've been peaceful. This is a couple of minutes. We had 20 minutes of it tonight, and we had about 10 minutes of craziness with a little spurt here and there last night afterwards.
Exactly.
So remember the peacefulness, remember the message, and we can all reflect on that to figure out where to go from here.
We thank you for being with us here on WFMY News 2 at 11. More coverage on WFMYnews2.com. Be safe and be well.
WFMY News 2 at 11 is brought to you by Cox Toyota in Burlington. Take a test drive and you could win $1,000. So before you buy, give Cox a try.